Well, hello and welcome to the Being Formed podcast. My name is Adam Ormord. I'm the host of the show and the president and co-founder of LifePoint Resources. Today's conversation is one we're approaching with care. April here in the United States is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And in this episode, I'm joined by Anne Richardson. Anne is the author of a book called Not Alone, and she's a trauma-informed spiritual director. Anne brings both her lived experience and deep wisdom as someone who's walked a long journey of healing and now walks alongside others. This isn't a conversation that tries to explain everything, but it is an invitation to listen, to notice, to perhaps recognize you are not alone. Before we dive in, I want to offer a brief word for those listening. This conversation touches on themes of sexual trauma. We won't be sharing graphic details, but even so, you may notice something stirring in you as you listen. So if that happens, just know you're invited to go at your own pace. You can pause, step away, come back when you feel ready. Just listen lightly. You are in control of how you engage with this conversation. Okay, why don't we go ahead and welcome Anne to the table. Well, hello, Anne Richardson. It is so good to see you. And I want to just welcome you here today to the Being Formed podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm
You
at
do?
peace.
Yeah.
And I thank you, Adam, for having me.
Oh, it's a thrill to have you. Welcome. We were talking before we hit record that you are from the San Diego, California area. Wonderful weather. I mean, I thought of all the places that you could say you lived, you picked one of my favorite places for sure. And so, wow. Thanks for spending an hour indoors with us.
I'm just honored. Thank you, Adam, for having me.
Well, I would love to ask you as we begin a question that I ask all our guests on the Being Formed podcast, and it's just a little deeper than that kind of surface answer. How are you? I'd love to just linger a bit with how is it with your soul?
Well, today I'm at peace. I find just practicing presence and staying in the moment, it just gives me a sense of peace as
Mm.
opposed to worrying about the future or dwelling in the past.
Oh, that's
So I
big.
think
Yeah.
that's where I'm at today. hmm
Just standing in the present with God, feeling grounded,
hmm
and
hmm
practicing practices that help you stay grounded is wonderful. Well, as we
Yes.
begin, I want just to acknowledge with you that this conversation may touch some tender places in you and me for those who are listening, right? And so I just would love to start out from the beginning, just learning from you and your perspective. What helps create a sense of safety for someone who's carrying a story of trauma?
Yes. Yes, it is so true because for sexual trauma, according to statistics, it's 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 6 men will have some kind of sexual trauma in their lifetime. So it's very common. And to the listeners, of course, our intent is not to trigger you, but to um, give you this information through my story.
Mhm.
So I would say if you are a survivor, just take a few deep breaths and just ground yourself in your room. Maybe look at something or listen to something and just say that you're in the present now, trauma is in the past, and that you're safe.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, we'd love to hear your story and love to know what life was like for you growing up. And as you share that with us, I'm really curious about those early experiences of God for you, and then just how you saw that journey unfolding into adulthood.
hmm yes, I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I had a very positive experience, especially in school. Um, we all grew up, same group of kids every year.
Mm.
As we got older, we got a little mischievous and I think maybe drove some of the nuns crazy, but we were basically good kids. And I still have some of those friendships. As I left, I went to college, I started to wander away. And then I tried, probably for years, over the years, I tried various Protestant churches. Um, I think that I was searching for something, and what I was searching for was a deeper relationship with Christ. So now I say to people, I'm Catholic and I'm Protestant. I'm not Catholic or Protestant. I'm a Christ follower.
Yeah.
But my a deeper where I went deeper with God was in a midlife crisis.
Mm.
So what happened was I was at this big church leading a women's mentoring ministry when on my 50th birthday, another woman on the board called me up and kind of railed into me, and she attacked my integrity as a leader. So when I hung up the phone, I kind of just sunk down into the floor like in a fetal position and cried. And I wasn't really sure why this was so upsetting to me.
Mm.
Um, but what made matters worse is she went to the board meeting and tried to get everybody on her side. I felt like I was going to a Salem witch trial, but most people sided with me. And another
Mm.
leader said, "You need to go fix this." So we talked it out. And what had happened is I had done something that triggered her past childhood pain,
Mm.
and she did something to trigger mine.
Mm.
So there was this hole in me, this wound in me that was poked.
Mm.
And I didn't know what that was. So I felt God nudge me to step out of ministry. I had to step out and step away. And because there was this wound here that he wanted to heal. And so I went into the desert, not a physical desert, but a place of silence and solitude. So I was meeting with my spiritual director. Started spending a lot of time with God, and I went to therapy. And in therapy, I learned how my childhood wounds affected me. So I was molested by my best friend's father.
Mm.
There were a lot of us little girls in the neighborhood. It was like a Hansel and Gretel story. Fun, candy, parties, you name it.
Yeah.
Yet there was this evil witch, or should I say monster.
Mm.
And that created a sense of shame in me.
Mm.
And it was embedded because I kept it a secret for a very, very long time. And so I struggled with confidence at times. I didn't feel enough. I didn't use my voice well, had trouble with some boundaries. That's how it affected me. I also had trust issues, especially with people in authority and my own intuition. And I had trust issues with God.
Mm.
Because you see, at that point, I knew a lot about God,
Mm.
but it was more in my head. And and then I also had issues with anger because my dad, he was a good man in very many ways, but he was also a rageaholic.
Mm.
And so that anger mostly took it out on my mother, but me too. That created shame and not feeling safe or secure as well. And so I just had struggles with conflict.
So all of a sudden, at age 50, you've got this conflict right in your face. There's nothing you can do about it, and you notice that it was the kind of triggering thing that took you into this exploration. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a spiritual director already, Anne?
Yes, I did.
You
I
did.
did. Yes. Hmm.
Hmm.
I was new to spiritual direction, but yes, and it was great because I learned a lot of different spiritual practices from her.
Mm-hmm.
And I found therapy was necessary and insightful,
Mm-hmm.
but the deeper healing came uh, with God because see, shame is like a cancer to the soul, and spending the time with God, getting to know Him,
Hmm.
learning to trust him and then open myself up to him, that's where the deeper healing came in.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to begin by saying I'm really truly sorry that happened to you as a child in a neighborhood where you should have experienced safety. That should have never happened to you, and I'm very sorry that it did.
Mm. Thank you.
Mm. And speaking of your dad's rage and how that shaped even your relationship with anger and conflict, can you identify how those early experiences, even with your dad, formed the way that you related to yourself and to
Hmm.
others and to God?
Hmm.
Like, how did you view God as a result of that?
Well, I don't think I recognized this as a child, but I think, growing up in Catholic school, I think I pictured him as this in the long white robe and the long white beard and up in the sky somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I might have felt he was distant. I don't, it's hard to recall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I interpreted anger as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would run away. So I'd try to run away from Mr. Berger, he was the perpetrator, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd run away from my dad when he was raging. So I think those that helped me as a child, but as an adult, no. It that I would run away from conflict
Mm-hmm.
because if someone was mad at me, I interpreted that I was bad, it was bad, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So just avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you know, if we're going to be in relationships, conflict's inevitable. So there were quite a few. Until I got some healing, I would just avoid it.
How did you identify shame?
I think I had a feeling of not being good enough or not
Mm-hmm.
being enough, not being worthy. I learned later in therapy that most children interpret any kind of abuse, even physical, emotional, as it's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
So, or I somehow deserve this,
Mm-hmm.
I somehow caused it. And I think that's why I stuffed it
Mm-hmm.
and ignored it.
So do you think that like you wouldn't have recognized shame for the early parts of your adult life?
Um, I can look back and see it,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I probably denied it, but I could look back. I remember one time I was sharing something and someone said to me, "I don't know why you don't see the good in yourself and
Mm-hmm.
what you have to offer." And that kind of blew me away. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
because I did struggle with that. I was confident at times, and other times I was just in that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
You mentioned running away, like physically running away from from trouble, conflict, doing something wrong, somebody looking at you inappropriately or angrily.
Hmm.
And you were running, I'm sure, to what would have felt safe for you. I'm just curious, what did safety look like for you back
Hmm.
then? And do you think that had an effect, like that strategy of kind of running to safety? Do you have any sense of how that might have limited you later on in life?
Yes, I would say, as a child, it was safe to run away. But
Mm,
what I did as an adult is I ran away from any kind of negative emotions.
okay.
So the anger, um, not dealing with it, and as you may know, when you stuff anger over the years, it's like a little volcano. It's going to rear its ugly head and spew out some lava.
Mm.
So I did some of that a few times. Fortunately, my husband is still with me. So I would avoid other negative emotions too, like hurt or any of that.
Mhm,
And on Strength Finders, one of my strengths is positivity,
mm,
which is a good thing. But to bypass any kind of negative emotion and jump to the positive too quickly,
mhm,
it's a false sense of safety.
mm, mhm, mhm,
So I had to learn how to welcome these emotions, not be afraid, sit with them, take them to God, reflect, and then see what lies beneath or
Yeah.
what's going on and why, because then that will open the door to healing.
Hmm. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, you mentioned therapy and that role, even in your own healing, was really important. But also, I loved how you were just talking about this whole spiritual direction component was taking you like in some deeper places with God. And I want to just hear more about that part of your journey. I know you were drawn into some practices of contemplation, like, silence and solitude. But tell us about those spaces with God. Why did those places feel safe for you? And how was that a different kind of a safety even than what, this kind of running away from?
Mhm. Well, I think, like I said, I think God was more in my head. I
Mm-hmm.
knew a lot about God
Mm-hmm.
because for years, I attended a Bible-based church.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to, I knew when that experience happened, I had had trouble with some other conflicts, and I didn't that experience should have been a 5 of
Mm-hmm.
her calling me, but I made it a 10, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't wanna live like that, and I could sense some of that shame, and I didn't wanna live like that anymore,
Yeah.
and I think just having the director and being in direction and then having her teach me some practices, and then I spent a lot of daily with my God. um, I started to talk to him and experience him more.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, something that really helped me in my desert was imaginative prayer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's simply putting yourself in the scripture passage and letting God speak to you. And so I chose the passages at first, how Jesus related to various women in the
Mm-hmm.
scriptures, like the woman at the well, the woman caught in adultery, the bleeding woman, the woman who washes his feet with her hair. There's quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
And even with his close friends, like with Thomas and Peter, he never shames anybody.
Mm-hmm.
True, the woman at the well, who's one of my favorites, he called her out on her behavior, but he didn't go there to do that. He went there to give her living water
Mm-hmm.
because he loved her and he wanted her to be free.
Yeah.
And that's what I was gleaming from him by spending the time and putting myself in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to feel more of his love. Then I started to feel safer. So I started to open up more.
Okay.
And then I started to trust him more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt more of his love, and the cycle goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Especially when you describe it as moving from up here in the head and a lot of information about how do we make that shift down here? What is this long journey down into this place of experience? And I think it's what you just said. It's little steps, it's little
Yes.
experiences, one after another, recreating new neural pathways that are being created when we're having these loving experiences with the God who loves us. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes people say, I feel like I'm here in my head. You're telling me to get into my heart and have something, and I don't know how to access that. And so now I'm stuck. This is a process, is a slow journey, right?
Yes.
And we're just putting
Mhm.
ourselves in this place with some of these practices that your director taught you, practices like silence or solitude or imaginative prayer. And we're going to talk more about some of these practices as we go on. But
Mhm.
these were the ways that you were just saying, okay, I'm willing to try this different approach of being with God. And even if I don't trust that he wants to be with me, I'm willing to be, I'm willing to give this a chance to just be with God and not try to produce or perform, make something happen here. And I just love this idea. And what you're saying is just like over time, this is that healing of the shame that you were experiencing. You couldn't have just been told by even your director or by a therapist or your best friend or your husband, that you're loved. You needed to experience that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Mm,
did. Because I think I felt invisible as a little child,
mm,
but I feel seen, known, and heard when I'm with
mm-hmm,
God, and
mm-hmm.
that took time, but, um, I tell people he's just the best listener,
Oh,
you know?
wow. Say more about
He's the
that. Just,
best.
I'd love to hear more about that, please.
Well, one of my needs is to be heard,
Mm-hmm,
and, I am naturally a listener. I'm also a spiritual director, and, but it's hard to find.
mm-hmm,
It's hard to find good listeners. Um, I don't know, maybe it's a gift, maybe it's influenced by our culture.
mm-hmm,
So, but I know now that humans are limited. I am limited, but God is unlimited.
mm-hmm,
And I talk to him like a friend every day,
mm-hmm.
and then he listens,
He
and
listens. Yeah.
I feel valued. It makes me feel loved.
Yeah.
I try to listen to him too, so it's
That,
a
yes. I love
yes,
that. That's that
yeah.
intimate relationship. It's
Mhm.
he's the best listener, and somewhere along the way we're becoming better listeners, aren't we, as we learn to listen even to God,
Yes.
that
Mhm.
still small voice.
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little more about shame if we can. There's this idea of toxic shame. Is there a shame that is healthy or not? I mean, I think there are varying opinions on this, and I'd
Yeah.
love to hear yours. But
Mhm.
then, what is this toxic shame, and how do we recognize the difference?
Yeah. Well, toxic shame is, it's kind of vague. It's not clear, but it's like I wanna describe it like there's some black cloud hanging over, and
Okay.
it says, "I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. This was my fault. I somehow deserved it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not lovable." It's that kind of putting self down.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I call it, truth,
Mm.
as far as, like, trauma goes, to say it did happen.
Mm.
It was an assault, it was abuse. It was not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
This wound does not define me.
Mm.
I can be empowered to take my life back. I make mistakes, I'm human. I can take responsibility for my actions, but not go to a place of low self-worth
Mm.
or self-blame.
Mm.
And I'm no longer a victim, and I know now I'm definitely enough.
Mm.
So that is truth. And when people ask me about the guilt or the guilt shame, that's you know what you did wrong. So,
Mm.
like, for example, if I blow up at my husband, I know that's not the way to handle anger, and it's hurtful. So I can own that. I can go and apologize and talk to him about what it is that I need,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Mm-hmm.
can talk that out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's going to draw me closer to him, to
Mm-hmm.
myself, and to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas the other kind of toxic shame is vague. I don't know what I did, but I don't feel enough, and
Mm.
draws me away from God. It draws me away from other people.
Yeah, you named some wonderful identifiers for truth. And I hope that before our conversation is over, we'll be able to touch on some of those again, or at least let people know where to find these in your work. Because might have already kind of buried the lead on this. You have written some books. You have a website. You have a ministry. You have support groups. You have all kinds of resources, all related to working through and working with trauma, in particular, sexual trauma. And so I think that it'll be good for our listeners to hear some of those core truths. I think, again, back to what you were kind of saying, there's this awareness of like a guilt. I did something wrong, or I'm angry. Like I notice anger in myself, right? That's an indicator.
Mhm.
Uh, so, so there's an important distinction I think that needs to be made. That all anger isn't bad. it can be a signal, right? So, and that's got to be hard for someone who maybe grew up with an anger,
Mhm.
with a parent, especially who had anger that constantly came out messy, sideways, and potentially abusive, right?
Mhm.
But to recognize that there is something in us, even related to anger, that can be a signal. So for you, I can only imagine what that journey must have been like. What was it like for your relationship with anger to change?
Well, I have to admit it was kinda scary.
Yeah.
So I had to of course, I had to learn about some of this in therapy and then to put it into practice, and, um, something I do now is I welcome it. I notice it in my body.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mm.
our bodies are a wealth of information if we'll listen to them, and so I can feel it in my chest. It gets tightened, and my jaw might get tight too, and then I need to go and get it out physically.
Mhm.
So I take a walk and pound the pavement, and
Mm.
various people do other things, punch a bag, scream, throw things,
Mhm.
whatever. I also might, um, I have an empty chair in my prayer room. I might swear at the chair,
Mhm.
put an imaginary person in there or whoever I'm angry at, or even myself, and let them have it.
Mm.
I've also found writing laments
Mhm.
very helpful, and I I even had to get angry at God,
Mhm.
and I found that He's a big God and can take it.
Mm.
And because I had to say, why did this happen to me? Why did you allow this?
Mhm.
Because the church is well intentioned, but to say, well, this was some plan for your life. No, it wasn't God's plan for my life.
Yeah.
But I do know that God worked together through good
Mm.
to bring good out of it. So anyway, back to being angry at God. He's big; He can take it. And I think what gave me permission to express my anger was noticing how David
Mm.
spoke anger in the laments, and we don't hear or sing worship songs on those, and we don't
Mhm.
hear a lot of sermons on those. So
Mhm.
that was a whole new area because David's considered a man after God's heart. And if he can rant and rave and be authentic and gut wrenching, well, so can I.
Mhm.
And so can you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, like letting anger out of that jar must have been a little fear inducing. Like, what if I let this out, where is it gonna go? What am I gonna become? Um, as
Mhm.
you were learning to express anger in these healthy ways, what did you discover in you underneath all that?
Well, after, and it's a process, but
Mm.
after I could get most of the anger out, um, I I know that there's emotions that lie beneath anger.
Gotcha. Yep.
And I had to sit with that.
Okay.
Like, what's really going on here? So, for example, shame is common. And I've been heard that that's more typical too for male survivors of sexual trauma, that their shame comes out in anger.
Mm.
And shame is going to lead to being grounded as the beloved,
Mm.
taking courage, taking your life back, being grounded as beloved. Sometimes it's fear. Fear can come out
Mhm.
in anger, and that's mostly taking courage again, taking courage, being strong. Um, let's see, what else? Frustration.
Mm.
That could lead to problem solving or that could lead to discernment.
Mhm.
Something's not working anymore, and not to be afraid to figure it out,
Mhm.
not to hang on to something because it's safe when maybe God's asking to let go and has something better.
Mhm.
Um, and then another common one is, oh, hurt. That's a biggie.
Mhm.
And that's going to lead to forgiveness and letting go.
Hmm.
So, and then there's other emotions, but those are very common.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
especially
was
in
the
the
dominant
trauma.
one for you?
I would say hurt. I would
hurt.
say shame and hurt. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
discovering that, like, what was the process of recognizing, oh, there's a hurt here. I'm I'm I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? Like, is it possible to know we're hurting and or to find out that we're hurting and had not really known it?
It could be, Adam, because, especially if, like, when I kinda deny it and
Yeah.
go to the positive too quickly, it's
Hmm.
like, I'm okay, and my psychologist, she said, "You minimized your trauma."
Okay.
And so, because I just thought, "Well, it's just no big deal." So
Hmm.
so it could happen,
Hmm.
and I wanna feel the positive, warm, fuzzy feelings, so I'm gonna ignore the hurt.
Hmm.
And now that's so unhealthy. You have
Mm,
to get
it's
through the
unhealthy.
pain and the emotions to get to the healing.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
wonder though if some people might hear that and say, "Well, you know, I'll admit I'm probably not facing all my stuff in a healthy way, and yet my life is working okay for me. It's working." I mean, what's the life that we're that we're trying to extend here as an invitation and to folks who are maybe finding some resistance even to this idea that there's more?
Yeah, that's a good question, Adam, because basically my life was kind of working in a lot of ways too.
Mm,
But I knew there was something more. Like I had a feeling that got to that place where, oh, my relationships could be better or deeper if I
mhm,
could handle conflict in a mature way.
mhm,
Now, sadly, it is true. Sometimes the relationships end,
mhm,
but other times they can go deeper. And then I felt the same with God. I wanted something deeper with God. It was
mhm.
a draw. I can't explain it, but I wanted that. I wanted to get from the head down into my heart, my
Yeah,
soul, and it's just hard to explain. I just
yeah,
wanted that peace, and that's
yeah,
that kind of that peace that Paul talks about. We can
mhm,
have peace that surpasses understanding, and we can have a deeper sense of God's love, a deeper
mhm,
sense of peace.
mhm. I know for me, it wasn't only peace. It was also a sense of joy, a sense of joy that I was lacking. And everybody promised me that joy and happiness are not the same thing, and you can't expect them to be. And I'm like, okay, great, but I still want joy. Is that too much to ask? And I've actually got books on my shelf that represent a season in my life where I was trying to pursue and to understand that there was joy uh, out being held out for me from God that I could not grasp. I couldn't, and I wanted it, and that wasn't like turning on a light switch. It was not an instantaneous thing. It was more of a slow recognition of, oh, is that joy?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. And of course it's not happiness, but what is it? And so for me, I feel like by connecting with God and learning how to connect with God on my journey, which also and kind of navigates through full-time church ministry as a person who didn't want to ever be seen as deficient, a four on the Enneagram, who thought all along I didn't have what it took. I didn't have what you have. I didn't have what anyone else had, right? So as I began to relate to God, not just through like ideas or trying to learn new truths about God, but through experiencing God's presence and coming to believe that God is a friend who wants to be with me. That's the shift. That I mean, joy was one of those places. Peace was one of those places. What about, I mean, for you, in a very real, everyday sense, what did relating with God start to look like for you? And even more than just like relational, how did you relate with God, but more the image of God. Like, what did you notice shifting in you in terms of what you saw God to be, or who you saw God to be as your healing unfolded?
Mhm. Well, it shifted from the man in the sky with the long beard and the white gown
Yeah.
to, um, I mean, I have the image of Jesus,
Mm,
God the Father, I'm not sure, more spirit. Um, but I just, it's shifted from there to here and to here inside of
mm,
me, in my soul and my being.
mhm,
Um, how do I describe it? I just get a sense that God is everywhere
mhm,
and like the air,
mm,
and the air is everywhere and it's in you and it's in me, it's in the breath.
mhm,
And so it's just, I guess I describe it like that,
mm.
that
Like
it's
being
more,
enveloped, just
yes, yes.
mm,
Hmm.
like a fish that's in water, and that's all it knows. It's just
Hmm.
this is the normality of it all. This, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, there's that song
Hmm.
I used to sing a lot as a worship leader. This is the air I breathe. Your very presence in me, living in me, with me.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love that you were like, yeah, I was able to put the long bearded, white robed God image away, and that's not helpful for me anymore.
Hmm.
And I also love that you were able to identify, and I have a clear image of Jesus. And that sounds to me like it's as a result of all these practices you were doing, these imaginative practices, you know. That's beautiful. Thank
Hmm.
you. Yeah, back to the practices. You already mentioned imaginative kind of reading through scripture. And you also have some other practices that you write about and teach on. Practices like soaking prayer, reflecting on specific psalms. Can you say more about some practices that were helpful for you and the role that they played in your healing?
Yes. Yes. So soaking prayer is, I learned that from my first spiritual director.
Mm,
And she said, you just kind of sit in the chair, open palms up, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and just receive God's love. Imagine Him pouring out His love on you.
mhm,
And don't talk, don't say anything. When the thoughts come in, and they will, put them in an imaginary cupboard and just go back to soaking.
mm,
And at first that was really hard, just to be quiet. And this isn't emptying the mind. This is like learning how to capture some of those thoughts, especially the toxic ones,
mm, mm, mhm,
and putting them aside and just letting God's love permeate. Now that took a long time and it was
mm,
hard. I'd
mhm,
set a timer, I'd start 10 minutes, and then I was soaking up to 30 minutes a day,
mm,
because I wanted that love to fill me without me doing something to make it happen, if
mhm,
that makes sense.
mhm,
I mean, I know
mhm,
I'm doing, but I'm presenting myself, but I'm just being quiet. So that was the other piece to uh, reflecting on the scriptures. So, for example, in Psalm 139, I loved it how he says we're fearfully and wonderfully made.
mhm,
And, in Genesis, he said, created man in his image,
mhm,
woman in the image, and it's good.
mhm,
And somehow life got messy, but God's intention was to create something beautiful. So um, the practice was to write out 20 characteristics about me that are
mm,
true,
mm,
and even some accomplishments, because we forget. We
mhm,
forget, oh, yeah, I did do that. Or, oh, yeah, God was with me then. Oh,
mhm,
yeah, I forget. And I would meditate on those.
mm,
And I would also meditate on the scriptures that would say, I am the beloved. Nothing can separate me from his love. I'm no longer condemned. Because, with trauma, it gets stored in the brain and the neural pathways. are disruptive. And so, but the good news is we can rewire them.
Mm-hmm.
And neuroscience backs up, the research backs up the benefit of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that was really helpful. And today, sometimes what I do is I just notice, I'll reflect on my day or reflect on the day before and just name like 5 ways I experience God's love for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be simple. A kind text, maybe, your pet wagging its tail, or a smile from someone, or a hug,
Mm-hmm.
savoring a piece of dark chocolate. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it can be something very simple, and to see and then to express gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
because being grateful, neuroscience backs that up too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the scripture to be grateful and to practice gratitude. So be
Mm-hmm.
grateful for the gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up joy, and that's another one. Name 3 ways, 4 ways you experience joy today.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be something very simple.
We have practices, and they're wonderful avenues of I think reconnecting with the God who loves us. Um, Also, people play an important role, don't they?
Hmm.
We talked about safety already, and now we want to just talk a little bit about safe people, people who we can share our stories with. How was that process for you discerning who's safe and why is this so important to the healing journey, Anne?
Well, we were made to be in community, and it's really important for trauma survivors, especially sexual trauma or any trauma, to have a safe support group. And so, I already had my director, and I sought out a safe psychologist. It was someone that I had known from before, and I also needed, I call them, you can call them traveling companions. These were women that I knew, and we formed a group together. We called ourselves the Three Amigas, and we would get together at least once a month and do like a listening group to where we could
Mhm.
listen to one another with no interruptions, no advice giving,
Yeah.
um, and then pray for one another. And they were such a gift to me.
Mhm.
And now, of course, after time, that group uh, faded, and then I have a new group now called the Monday Girls,
Mhm.
and we do something very similar and support each other. So yeah, safety is really important. And if
Mhm.
not, then there's all kinds of support groups available out there too.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
mhm,
You were smart to identify whoever you're going to bring into this group were going to be people who would listen well, right? Or at least
mhm,
attempt to. That was their heart's desire.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yes, because in the beginning, see, it was midlife. I was in my midlife. I think I admitted it to a few family members,
Mhm.
and you know, most
Mhm.
people do not know what to say and do,
Mhm.
and including in the church. So most people are like, well, it's no big deal. Well, that was a long time ago. Well, you're over it now. Well, well, well. And then there's the comparing. Well, you weren't raped or violently beaten, and that's true, but it still affected me. And so what I did, what a lot of people do, what my psychologist called is minimizing.
Mhm.
So that minimizes keeps you stuck. So when I look for people who are safe, I share a little bit and then I see how they respond. So, if their eyes widen or their jaw drops or they turn away or they change the subject, I know they're uncomfortable. I'm
Mhm.
not angry. I don't beat them up. Um, Most people, it's hard for them to sit with this, and I get it,
Mhm.
and show them grace, and then find the right person.
Mhm.
Who can sit and is willing to lean in and listen.
Mhm. 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 Can we do that now? Just, I'd love to just sit for a moment uh, with you and just what you've come to know. And and also what you're helping other people come to know. These are significant shifts. You've mentioned you're God's beloved. You're God's beloved daughter. You're God's beloved son. You're God's beloved child. Before you do anything, certainly before anything's been done to you, the truth, the through line, you are the beloved of God. Also, I've heard you mention God does not cause trauma. People do.
Mhm. You know, I don't like it when Christians say, well, this is your plan for your life. And it's like, no, God doesn't cause trauma, people do. You know, because other survivors ask me all the time, well, how do you deal with that? And it's like, I I don't want to answer that question. That's a big one. And the more I know God, He is very, 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 very infinite. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot I don't know. He tells us His thoughts and ways are higher. It's like looking out at the stars at night. I can see some stars, but there's so much more out there I don't see and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know that I'm beloved, that He can work together through good, that He's healed me and He's called me to come alongside others.
Mm-hmm.
So I can hold what I know about God and what I don't. So I don't have to have God in a box. And God loved the church and religion, but sometimes they want to put them in a box because they got to know.
Yeah.
And we're not going to know the infinite,
Yeah.
but we can experience His love.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And what else have you learned?
Um, I have also learned about the importance of grief
Mm-hmm.
and that to grieve all kinds of losses, not just what happened to me, but what I lost. I had to grieve being sexualized before I was ready.
Wow.
I had to grieve the loss of maybe parents who could have protected me or met some of my needs as a child because I
Yeah.
was going down there. So I had to grieve all kinds of losses, spending a lot of my first part of my life in and out of shame or not
Mm-hmm.
handling conflict. Um, I also needed to go through the forgiveness process, and I know this is hard. People say, "How can you forgive something like this?" And uh, all I can say, it's a process. I I was able to let that go, and even though by the time I did my work, Mr. Berger had passed on, I was able to write him a letter
Mm.
with all my anger and all this, and get all several letters and get all that out. With my dad, I was his caregiver advocate, and I started listening to all his trauma stories, and I started to develop compassion for him. And one day he started yelling at me, and I finally found the courage and used my voice.
Mm.
I mean, I kind of flipped out, but I used it, and
Mm-hmm.
um, he never yelled it again.
Wow.
And towards the very end, I remember walking out one day, I was leaving, and I turned around, I looked at him, and I said, bye, Dad, I love you. And he goes, I love you too, honey. And that was one of the first times I ever heard him say he loved me.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know he did. And I think this is key for me and something I always want to share with others. I I chose and still do. I dwell on the good things my father did for me and for the good things who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I have let go of what he could not give me.
Wow. So, out of your journey, and you've done some great work, you're putting great work out there. How did you begin to sense that your story could become something that you would offer to others?
Well, I felt after a period of healing, I felt a little nudge by God to say, share your story.
Mm.
And I'm like, what?
Mm.
That was kind of scary.
Yeah.
But what I found that as I started sharing my story, others were sharing their stories with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so Um, I've been reading different books, and I thought, you know what, I could I could do this, but I would add the spiritual practices. I would add that piece.
Hmm.
And so I gathered their stories with permission,
Hmm.
changed their names, and gathered all these spiritual practices, and I put them in a Not Alone book.
Hmm.
And then it's a workbook. And so I've been leading groups now for 10 years called Not Alone. With the second book, I decided to put that piece in on how to accompany a survivor. And then I went even further because I'm also a supervisor of directors. And I found that directors were freezing when it comes up in spiritual direction. And one uh, ended up dropping her jaw when the directee brought it up, and the directee got up and left the room, and the not only was the session over, but the relationship was over. So I saw a need. It's like, oh, my fellow directors
Hmm.
may need this too,
Hmm.
because there are a lot of directors and a lot of lay people that haven't been trained in trauma and
Hmm.
are not trauma informed.
Yeah.
So that's where that came out of.
Hmm.
And then the latest group I'm doing is just, I call it a beloved group. The curriculum's God Delights in You,
Hmm.
because I see a lot of people struggle with, gee, does God really, okay, does he really love me? But okay, I know he loves me, but does he like me?
Yeah.
So then that's what I'm doing now too. And I love it. I love
Well,
it.
and as we're about to wrap up our time, I want to just offer for those who might be listening and recognizing parts of their own story and what you shared, what might be a next step for them?
Well, if I don't know where you're at in your journey, so I'll just say be empowered,
Mm.
take courage, take your life back, and know there's hope with God. And also, there's hope with um, safe people.
Mhm.
If you know of safe people, or find a safe therapist, you can interview them. You can get a recommendation. You know, I was able to kind of spontaneously form a safe support group like the Three Amigas, but
Mhm.
you might be able to find one through your church or through some other people you know.
Mhm.
I would also say, if you haven't yet, write your story. Write it and share it out loud
Mm.
with God. And I know that sounds scary. Some people have said, "Oh, that's scary." She goes, "I don't want." Someone said, "I don't want anyone to read it," and I said, "Well, hide it." Or another person hid it on their computer with a
Mm.
password. But there's something that is released in the brain, and just those chains of shame are
Yeah.
released when we share our secret.
Yeah.
And then after you've shared it with God, I would say find a safe person to share it with. Because
Mm.
I know therapists are in disagreement of us sharing our stories. I know about, don't want to re trigger any trauma or PTSD, but for me, I found it healing, and so have a lot of other people. So
Mm.
again, do what's ever comfortable, share what's ever comfortable,
Mhm.
but step out, release your story,
Yeah.
and find good support.
All right. Well, everyone, want you to know our ministry, LifePoint Resources, man, we're really wanting to be more trauma informed and to help create more trauma informed communities and conversations. And so, Anne has been gracious enough to actually step into a webinar that we'll be leading. And thank you for saying yes, both to this podcast and to a further conversation where the webinar is going to be called Accompanying Survivors of Sexual Trauma. Is there anything you want to tell us, Anne, about what you're planning for this webinar?
Sure. I just want to share this with people because so many survivors have told me all the things that the hurtful things that people have said and done that have just made the shame deepen, and so it's not intentional. It's just like I said, it's uncomfortable, and most people don't know what to do and say, even in the church.
Hmm.
So what? what we're going to go over is I'll briefly share my story again, but very brief. And then I'm going to go over compassionate listening, and then what to do, what to say and do, and
Mhm.
what not to say and do. I will talk about for some ministry leaders or some questions, the
Mhm.
appropriate questions to ask, and maybe even a few practices. I'm also going to talk about what to do for you as a
Mm.
listener,
Mm.
because carrying trauma can be, um, you want to know how to release that,
Mhm.
and then knowing when to refer.
Well, thank you, Anne, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with you, not just at the end of April, but ongoing. Thank you very much.
And thank you again for having me.
Well, thanks again, Anne, for your honesty, for the way you've named both the pain and the real work of healing. Thanks for the care with which you carry those who are still finding their way. If you're listening today and something in you feels stirred, maybe that's your own story or somebody you love, I just want to say this: you're not alone. Later this month, Anne and I will be hosting a webinar where we will create a bit more space to explore some of these themes, especially for those who want to take a next step in their own healing or in how they accompany others. You can find more information about that in the show notes or visit LifePoint Resources at www.lifepointresources.org. Again, thanks for listening. Keep walking the path. Christ is with you and you're being formed. Until next time, grace and peace.